7, get ready studying English right at the comfort of your home. And be ready with your module, pen, and everything you need for this learning episode. Are you ready? Great! Welcome to our English class. This is Ma'am Denise and this is 3D TV. Do you have any idea where we can find these pictures? I'll give you 5 seconds to answer. Alright, let's start! Alright, your time is up. The correct answer is Bulacan. Next. The correct answer is Batanes. Next. The correct answer is Cebu. Did you get the right answer? Great! What have you noticed from the pictures that you saw earlier? Right! All of the places that have mentioned are from the Philippines. Some of the pictures presented earlier contains the local products and the local tourist spots that can only be found in the places or in the provinces that we have mentioned earlier. Now, do you have any idea of our topic today? Awesome!
Today, we will discover literature as a tool to assert one's unique identity and to better understand other people. Here are your key takeaways for today's episode. Identify social and cultural factors that help shape our identities. Recognize local color as it was used in the selection. And appraise how the selection serves as avenue in asserting Filipino identity.
Now let's proceed to this activity called We Filipinos. Turn your module to page 8 and answer this activity.
Direction. Write some traits that you believe all Filipinos share by completing the statement below. I'll give you 2 minutes to answer. Are you ready? Let's start!
Your time is up, class. Now, some of you might answer we Filipinos are kind, generous, and hardworking. And all of your answers are correct.
Woo!
From the traits that you have written, it seems like we are now ready to find out the title of the story that you are about to read. And that story is entitled
We Filipinos Are Mild Drinkers by Alejandro R. Roses. We Filipinos are mild drinkers. We drink for only three good reasons. We drink when we are very happy. We drink when we are very sad. And we drink for any other reason. When the Americans recaptured the Philippines, they built an airbase a few miles from our barrio. Yankee soldiers became a very common sight. I met a lot of GIs and made many friends. I could not pronounce their names. I could not tell them apart. All Americans looked alike to me. They all looked white. One afternoon, I was plowing our rice field with our carabao named Datu. I was barefooted and stripped to the waist. My pants, that were made from abaca fibers and woven on homemade looms, were rolled up to my knees. My bolo was at my side. An American soldier was walking on the highway. When he saw me, he headed towards me. I stopped plowing and waited for him. I noticed he was carrying a half-pint bottle of whiskey. Whiskey bottles seemed part of the American uniform. "Hello, my little brown brother," he said, patting me on the head. "Hello, Joe," I answered. All Americans are called Joe in the Philippines. "Any bars in this town?" he asked. That was usually the first question American soldiers asked when they visited our barrio. "I'm sorry, Joe," I replied. "There are no bars in this barrio." "Oh, hell! You know where I could buy more whiskey?" "No, Joe, I am sorry. We do not drink whiskey." "Here, have a swig. You have been working too hard," he said, offering me his half-filled bottle. "No, thank you, Joe," I said. "We Filipinos are mild drinkers." "Well, don't you drink at all?" "Yes, Joe, I drink, but not whiskey." "What the hell do you drink?" "I drink lambanog, jungle juice, eh? I guess that's what the GIs call it." "You know where I could buy some?" "I have some you can have, but I don't think you will like it." "I like it alright, don't worry about that. I have drunk everything. Whiskey, rum, brandy, tequila, gin, champagne, sake, vodka." He mentioned many more that I cannot spell. "Say you sure drink a lot, don't you?" "I not only drink a lot, but I drink anything. I drank Chanel No. 5 when I was in France. In New Guinea, I got soused on William's shaving lotion. When I was laid up in the hospital, I got pie-eyed with medical alcohol. On my way here in a transport, I got stoned on torpedo juice. You ain't kidding when you say I drink a lot. So let's have some of that jungle juice, eh?" "Alright," I said. "I will just take this carabao to the mud hole, then we can go home and drink." "You sure love that animal, don't you?" "I should," I replied. "It does half of my work." "Why don't you get two of them?" I did not answer. I unhitched Datu from the plow and led him to the mud hole. Joe was following me. Datu lay in the mud and was going whoosh, whoosh. Flies and other insects flew from his back and hovered in the air. A strange warm odor rose out of the mud hole. A carabao does not have any sweat glands except on its nose. It has to wallow in the mud or bath in the river about every 3 hours. Otherwise, it runs amok. Datu shook his head and his widespread horn scooped the muddy water on his back. He rolled over and was soon covered with slimy mud. An expression of perfect contentment came into his eyes. Then he switched his tail and Joe and I had to move back from the mud hole to keep from getting splashed. I left Datu in the mud hole. Then, turning to Joe, I said, "Let us go." And we proceeded towards my house. Joe was curiously looking around. "This place is full of coconut trees," he said. "Don't you have any coconut trees in America?" I asked. "No," he replied. "Back home we have pine tree." "What is it like?" "Oh, it is tall and stately. It goes straight up to the sky like a skyscraper. It symbolizes America." "Well," I said, "the coconut tree symbolizes the Philippines. It starts up to the sky, but then it lives way down to earth, as if remembering the land that gave it birth. It does not forget the soil that gave it life." In short while, we arrived in my nipa house. I took a bamboo ladder and leaned it against the tree. Then I climbed the ladder and picked some calamansi. "What's that?" Joe asked. "Philippine lemon," I answered. "We will need these for our drinks." "Oh, chasers." "That is right, Joe. That is what the soldiers call it." I filled my pockets and then went down. I went to the garden well and washed the mud from my legs. Then we went up a bamboo ladder to my hut. It was getting dark, so I filled the coconut shell with coconut oil, dipped a wick in the oil and lighted the wick. It produced a flickering light. I unstrapped my bolo and hung it on the wall. "Please sit down, Joe," I said. "Where?" he asked, looking around. "Right there," I said, pointing to the floor. Joe sat down on the floor. I sliced the calamansi in halves and took some rough salt and laid it on the foot-high table. I went to the kitchen and took the bamboo tube where I kept my lambanog. Lambanog is a drink extracted from the coconut tree with pulverized mangrove bark thrown in to prevent spontaneous combustion. It has many uses. We use it as a remedy for snake bites, as counteractive for malaria chills, as an insecticide, and for tanning carabao hide. I poured some lambanog on 2 polished coconut shells and gave one of the shells to Joe. I diluted my drink with some of Joe's whiskey. It became milky. We were both seated on the floor. I poured some of my drink on the bamboo floor. It went through the slits to the ground below. "Hey, what are you doing?" said Joe, "throwing good liquor away?" "No, Joe," I said. "It is the custom here to always give back to earth a little of what we have taken from the earth." "Well," he said, raising his shell, "here's to the end of the war." "Here's to the end of the war," I said, also lifting my drink. I gulped my drink down. I followed it with a slice of calamansi dipped in rough salt. Joe took his drink but reacted in a peculiar way. His eyes popped out like a frog's, and his hand clutched his throat. He looked as if he had swallowed a centipede. "Quick, a chaser," he said. I gave him a slice of calamansi dipped in unrefined salt. He squirted it in his mouth. But it was too late. Nothing could chase her. The calamansi did not help him. I don't even think a coconut would have helped him. "What is wrong, Joe?" I asked. "Nothing," he said. "The first drink always affects me this way." He was panting hard and tears were rolling down to his cheeks. "Well, the first drink always acts like a minesweeper," I said. "But the second one will be smooth." I filled his shell for the second time. Again, I diluted my drink with Joe's whiskey. I gave Joe his shell. I noticed that he was beaded with perspiration. He had unbuttoned his collar and loosened his tie. Joe took his shell but did not seem very anxious. I lifted my shell and said, "Here is to America." I was trying very hard to be a good host. "Here's to America," Joe said. We both killed our drinks. Joe again reacted in a funny way. His neck stretched out like turtles, and now he was panting like a carabao gone amok. He was grasping his thigh with one hand. Then he looked down on his thigh, drew it to one side, and said, "Oh Christ," for a while I thought it was my tongue. After this, he started to tinker with his teeth. "What's wrong, Joe?" I asked, still trying to be a perfect host. "Plenty. This dumb stuff had loosened my bridge work." As Joe exhaled, a moth flying around the flickering flame fell dead. He stared at the dead moth and said, "And they talk of DDT. Well, how about another drink?" I asked. It is what we came here for. No thanks, he said. I'm through. Surely you will not refuse my hospitality? Okay, just once more. I poured the juice in the shells and again diluted mine with whiskey. I handed Joe his drink. Here's to the Philippines, he said. Here's to the Philippines, I said. Joe took some of his drink. I could not see very clearly in the flickering light, but I could have sworn I saw smoke out of his tears. This stuff must be radioactive, he said. He threw the remains of his drink underneath a wall and yielded. Blaze, goddamn you, Blaze. After 2 hours, I arrived at the airfield. I found out which barracks he belonged to and took him there. His friends helped me take him to his cot. They were glad to see him back. Everybody thanked me for taking him home. As I was leaving the barracks to go home, one of his buddies called me and said, "Hey, you, how about a can of beer before you go?" "No thanks," I said. We Filipinos are mild drinkers.
Now, along the way reading the story, did you notice the following?
Number 1. Use of the non-English words calamansi and lambanog. Number 2. The detailed description of clothes. Number 3. The carabaw's need for a mud hole. And number 4. Other customs particular to the Philippines.
If yes, that is because local color is part of the setting. Now, you might ask, what is local color? Now, let's define local color.
What is local color? Local color is the style of writing derived from the presentation of the features and peculiarities of a particular locality and its inhabitants.
Now, let's proceed to our enrichment activity. In this activity, you will be going to search for 5 local color that you have encountered in the story that we have read earlier. I'll give you 5 minutes to answer. Are you ready? Great! Now, let's start!
Let's check! First, we have Nipohot. Nipohots were the native houses of the indigenous people of the Philippines before the Spaniards arrived. The mention of giving a little back to nature is an example of local color focusing on tradition or way of living. Next, we have Calamansi. In the story, the use of non-English word calamansi is a specific fruit that can only be found in the Philippines, so it has no English name. In the story, the Americans referred to it as lemon fruit and chaser. Next, we have lambanog. Lambanog is a traditional Filipino distilled palm liquor made from coconut or nipa palm sap. It is derived from tuba that has been aged for at least 48 hours. Lambanog is also an example of non-English word, and in the story there is an instance that it was called jungle juice by the American soldier. Next, we have mudhole. The Carabao's need for mudhole is local color focusing on its character and topography. Lastly, we have abaca. The detailed description of clothes, my pants that were made from abaca fibers and woven on homemade looms, is another representation of local color as it is the common clothes worn by the farmer in the Philippines.
Now that you have identified local color, let's now proceed to our quiz. You'll have 5 seconds to answer each question. Are you ready? Great! Let's start!
For number 1, who is the author of We Filipinos Are Mild Drinkers? Your timer starts now. The correct answer is letter C, Alejandro Roses. Now, let's proceed to number 2. What is something Filipino have when accommodating visitors? Your timer starts now. The correct answer is letter B, hospitability. Next, what are the 2 non-English words used in the text? Your timer starts now. The correct answer is letter D, calamansi and lambanog. Next, it is the style of writing derived from the presentation of the features and peculiarities of a particular locality and its inhabitants. Your timer starts now. The correct answer is letter D, local color. Now let's proceed to our last number, number 5. Which of the following is not good reason for drinking according to the text? Your timer starts now. The correct answer is letter C, we drink for leisure.
Now let's proceed to your assignment.
In a short bond paper, write a slogan about Filipino identity. You may create it according to your style. Make sure to be creative in creating one. You will be scored according to the following rubrics. You can pause this video to take a screenshot of your assignment.
It's been a fruitful day to all of us. I hope you stay safe and healthy. This has been Mom Denise, and this is 3D TV. See you on our next class. Bye!